All right, I'm going to move on to a guy that actually was on the move this past offseason, Elijah Moore. So right now he's sitting at 115 as far as our ADP, which is good for wide receiver 48 off the board.
Say what?
23 years old, obviously former second-round draft pick. He just turned 23 as well, so he's a young 23. Last year finished as wide receiver 80. Obviously not great numbers. There were big-time issues between him and Zach Wilson. When Zach Wilson started a game, our guy Elijah Moore here averaged 3.67 fantasy points per game on 2.55 targets. And there were a couple of games where he didn't get targeted at all. And, there was back and forth, like after games.
He should demand a trade.
Back and forth with him in the ball.
Right. In games, it wasn't like amazing when Elijah Moore got, or a different quarterback was there. I think he averaged 8 fantasy points a game, but there was obviously an uptick. You know what I mean? And he got almost 6 targets a game with the other quarterbacks, Mike White and
Joe Flacco.
So it was much better, but obviously he's like a classic guy, high second round draft pick, flashed big time right at the end of his rookie season.
Correct.
He had
wide receiver 3 overall.
Right, he had like 400.
Amazing.
I'm missing the stats here. I lost him somewhere. 459 yards and 5 touchdowns in 6 games until he tweaked I think it was a quad, and he missed week 17, 18.
Yeah, it was like even before that because it was like weeks 7 through.
It was a 6-game stretch, and he scored.
Yeah, it was just a monster.
And
7 through
he
like
just
13,
went berserk
8 through 14
in his rookie season. 459 yards, 5 touchdowns in 6 games, and then he tweaks it.
I remember because he was wide receiver 3 overall.
He tweaked a quad, and he missed the rest of the season. So that was 2021. 2022 was the debacle I had already just talked about. Him and Wilson not being on the same page. So a guy with talent. Undeniable. I think going back to college, we all liked him very much.
Love him.
Yeah. So he gets a change of scenery, and this wasn't like a throwaway trade. This was
at all.
The Browns gave up their second-round draft pick, 42nd overall. That was their first pick in this draft.
It was.
And they got a third-round pick back, but it was like this number 74 pick. So, that's a big-time jump when that's your first pick to go from 42 all the way back to 74. So they obviously saw something they liked.
They loved him during that draft. They want him during his draft as well.
Right. So I think it makes a lot of sense that they're bringing on a guy that they really like, but also if you dig in a little bit, it looks like right now he's in a pretty crowded room. It's got Donovan Peoples-Jones, who kind of is starting to emerge a little bit and look like a guy that can play a little bit in the NFL.
Sure.
And obviously Amari Cooper's there, who is the veteran.
Big time one.
Yeah, the big time guy there. But when you dig in a little bit, you look at Amari Cooper's contract, and I think they'll probably make it work, but there's a potential out there next year where they can save about $12 million against the cap if they get rid of Amari Cooper, who's 29 or is going to be 29, next month, and going to be getting close to 30,
sure.
Next season, and they could save $12 million without making it a post June 1st cut, and $18 million against the cap if they make him a post June 1st cut next year. So this is a guy that he could be the next guy up, and Donovan Peoples-Jones is in the last year of his deal as well. So potentially you're looking at a guy, Elijah Moore, that right now is going dirt cheap on our trade finder. It's Elijah Moore and a third for a second.
Right.
And stuff like that. I saw that.
Which is just what happened in the real draft too.
Exactly.
I got him. I got him straight to the Browns for 2 seconds.
Elijah Moore and a third for Gabe Davis. Those are just ridiculous trades in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Anyway. For a guy that could be looking himself as the number one option in an offense that has Deshaun Watson hopefully gets it turned around. And it's going to be him and like Cedric Tillman there next year. That could be potentially the wide receiver duo that is the starters here in Cleveland. And there's other guys there, Anthony Schwartz, David Bell, guys that
filler.
They're filler.
Schwartz ain't making the roster.
They're fillers, and I wrote in my notes. I wouldn't be surprised if Schwartz is gone, and maybe even David Bell if he doesn't start producing. I think really them kind of drafting these past couple of years and continuing to draft guys and bringing
this
guys.
This is the third year in a row they've drafted a third round receiver.
Right,
they haven't been happy with the production.
They really have not. So it just all spells to me like great value, young player, loved him coming out of the draft. And now you dig into the numbers a little bit as well, which is always something I like to do. The Browns only have $6 million right now of cap space. They've been eating away. They used to be, 3-4 years ago, they were one of these teams that had the top amount, and they've been chipping away, getting more and more. And, they got Wills on the 5th-year option, but his cap hit goes from $6 million this year to 14 next year. So there's some guys taking some big jumps. They got to get Newsome signed, the first-round cornerback. So it's one of these things where they might be looking for space, and they might find it at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, but
what
they'll do is they'll keep reworking Deshaun Watson's deal every single year. They'll probably redo Miles. Miles probably get his deal redone. Maybe get some fake years added onto it or years added onto it. The cap's gonna go up significantly these next couple of years.
Worst case scenario, he's still the number 2 option to Amari Cooper, who's going to be 30 next year.
So
which to me is still a good scenario for a player like this. That's only 23 years old.
And I love that. I personally believe that Amari will be back next year. I think he's too good not to come back at that price tag at $20 million. I think it's a really good deal for a number 1 wide receiver. So I do think he'll come back. But that's no negative against, and I'm with you about Elijah Moore. I think what that does is give Cedric Tillman time to see if he can develop the next 2 years to take over to be that outside receiver for Amari Cooper. And I think Elijah Moore would be locked in the slot. I mean, you could probably put him outside as well. Love this tape. Love his ability versus man coverage to get open consistently. Love his hands. I mean, we talked about when he's coming out, like this guy was able to make catches like when the ball is on the ground. Like his hands are unbelievable.
And he's going to need that.
And like you mentioned that what they gave up for him. This is a team, they were really big on Elijah coming out of college as well. That this is like, they have 2 years. Look at him. He's probably in their long-term plans as it signs out. So he'll probably get that extension at some point as well if he can show up, which I think he will because I believe in a player.
And he's got this year and next year on his rookie deal still.
Correct. So I mean, I think we talked before, like you hope, like for me personally as a Browns fan, like the way I hope it turns out is Cedric Tillman and Elijah Moore are the future receiving core of the Browns. Like that's how you hope like 4 years from now what it looks like. So for the price tag, like you mentioned, I got him after news break for 2 seconds. Like if you're getting a guy like this with the potential to be the number 2 option and a team that's going to throw the football a ton. Remember, probably Nick Chubb's probably got 2 more years left. So a team that already plans going this year to throw a football a ton. The Browns offense is planned out to look completely different in 2023. They really do want to throw the football a ton. That's one of the negative things you say about Chubb. It's just he wins no matter what. So I think it's great value.
Yeah, the big thing for me here is just the guys around him, ADP wise. I would just prefer him over a lot of the guys in the range. The receivers going right before him, Marvin Mims, Rashee Rice, like both nice upside players, but we have no idea what we're getting out of them. We haven't seen them touch a field yet, and we had questions about some of the things on their tape. Marvin Mims is in a little more crowded room. And then right after him, Gabe Davis and Jaden Reed. So it's just a lot of like what if players. And Elijah Moore is too. Elijah Moore is absolutely a what if player. But there's a much clearer path to what he could be. And we've at least seen those moments of he looks really good. Will it all come together? We'll have to wait and see. That's why he's down this far. But we've at least seen it on tape.
We've seen him win, like Matt said, in a 6-week span in the NFL. Yep. So, like, we know he can do it at the NFL level. It's just about opportunity. And it's every player, like, you want to be in position to win. Like, just because, like, Tim Patrick is a fine NFL receiver. But he's the 3rd, maybe now 4th option in Denver. You know what I mean? So, same thing. Like, Donovan Peoples is a fine okay receiver, but like he's not a fantasy winner, and that's what we're trying to look for here, right. And that's what Elijah Moore is in position to do.